Every 9 years, Athens sent 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete to be devoured by a monster that lived in a maze so complex no one who entered ever found their way out. This was not mythology's distant past. This was a debt the Athenians paid in living memory, year after year, because they had lost a war, and this was the price. Then one year, the king's son volunteered to be one of the 14. His name was Theseus, and he said he was going to kill the monster. He did. But the story of how he got out of the maze is more interesting than the story of how he killed what was inside it. The myth of Theseus and the Minotaur is preserved in sources from Plutarch's Life of Theseus to Ovid's Metamorphoses. It is one of the foundational myths of Athens, used to establish Theseus as the city's greatest hero and national founder. The story contains a monster, a maze, a princess, and a ball of thread that became one of the most famous problem-solving devices in all of Western literature. What makes this myth worth studying is that it's not really about the monster. The Minotaur is almost incidental. The real story is about the Labyrinth, the impossible maze that even if you defeat the creature inside, you still die because you can't find your way back out. Theseus wins because someone gives him the one tool that solves that problem. The thread matters more than the sword. If you're following the complete Greek mythology series, subscribe to Snaphold Myths and hit the bell. We're building every major myth in order. Like this video if you want more, and let's get into the maze. The tribute of 14 Athenian youths began with a murder. King Minos of Crete had a son named Androgeus who traveled to Athens and won every event in the Panathenaic Games. The Athenians, resentful of his dominance, sent him to fight the bull of Marathon. He died. When Minos learned his son was dead, he assembled a fleet and invaded Attica. Athens could not win the war. Minos was too powerful, his navy too strong. The terms of surrender were brutal. Every 9 years, Athens would send 7 boys and 7 girls to Crete. They would be thrown into the labyrinth beneath King Minos' palace, where the Minotaur would hunt and kill them. This continued for 2 cycles. 28 young people were already dead. The Minotaur was not a natural creature. It was the offspring of Minos' wife Pasiphae and a sacred white bull sent by Poseidon. Minos had angered Poseidon by refusing to sacrifice the bull as promised. Poseidon's revenge was to make Pasiphae fall in love with the bull. The result of that union was the Minotaur, a creature with the head of a bull and the body of a man. Minos was horrified and ashamed. He could not kill the creature because it was still his wife's child, but he could not allow it to live openly. So he commissioned Daedalus, the greatest craftsman and inventor in Greece, to build a prison so complex that nothing could ever escape it. Daedalus designed the Labyrinth, a maze of endless corridors, dead ends, and identical passages that looped back on themselves. The Minotaur was sealed inside, and that is where it stayed, fed every 9 years on Athens' children. Theseus was the son of King Aegeus of Athens, though his parentage was complicated. His mother Aethra had been visited by both Aegeus and the god Poseidon on the same night, which meant Theseus was either fully mortal or half-divine, depending on which father you counted. Either way, he grew up strong, capable, and eager to prove himself. When the time came for the 3rd tribute, Theseus volunteered. Ancient sources differ on whether he was chosen by lot and simply accepted, or whether he demanded to go. Either way, Aegeus was horrified. Theseus told his father he would kill the Minotaur and return alive. Aegeus made him promise, "If you succeed, change the sails from black to white on your return, so I know you're alive before the ship reaches harbor." Theseus and the 13 other tributes sailed to Crete on a ship with black sails, the color of mourning. When they arrived, they were paraded before King Minos and his court. Minos' daughter Ariadne saw Theseus and immediately fell in love. Ancient sources describe this as either genuine attraction or divine intervention from Aphrodite. Either way, the result was the same. She decided to help him. Ariadne went to Daedalus, the architect of the Labyrinth, and asked him how someone could navigate it and return. Daedalus gave her a ball of thread. She brought it to Theseus the night before the tributes were to be sent into the maze and told him, "Tie one end to the entrance, unspool it as you go deeper, and follow it back when you're done." Then she gave him a sword. The next morning, Theseus and the 13 others were pushed into the labyrinth. The entrance was sealed behind them. The maze was dark, disorienting, and designed to break the minds of those trapped inside. Every corridor looked like every other corridor. Every turn could lead deeper or loop back to where you started. The Minotaur's roars echoed from somewhere in the darkness, impossible to locate. Theseus tied the thread to the entrance, as Ariadne instructed, and began walking deeper. The other tributes stayed close behind him. The thread unspooled behind them, a single line connecting them to the outside world. Without it, they would already be lost. With it, they had a chance. They found the Minotaur at the center of the labyrinth. Ancient sources describe it as maddened by isolation, half-starved, and violently territorial. It charged immediately. Theseus fought it in close quarters with the sword Ariadne had given him. The fight was brutal and desperate, not heroic. When it was over, the Minotaur was dead, and Theseus was covered in its blood. But killing the monster was never the hard part. The hard part was getting out. Theseus gathered the other tributes and began following the thread back toward the entrance. In the dark, in the identical twisting corridors, the thread was the only thing that made escape possible. They followed it for what felt like hours until they finally reached the entrance. The door was still sealed, but Ariadne was waiting on the other side. She opened it. Theseus, Ariadne, and the tributes ran to the ship and set sail immediately. Ariadne had betrayed her father and her kingdom for Theseus, and there was no going back for her. She was coming to Athens, whether Theseus wanted her to or not. On the voyage home, they stopped at the island of Naxos to rest. What happened on Naxos depends on which version you read. In some, Theseus simply abandoned Ariadne while she slept and sailed away without her. In others, the god Dionysus appeared and told Theseus that Ariadne was meant to be his wife, and Theseus left her for the god. In still others, Ariadne died in childbirth on the island, and Theseus sailed away in grief. The most common version is the first. Theseus abandoned her. Ancient sources offer various justifications, none of them particularly convincing. He was young and thoughtless. He was already engaged to someone else. He didn't want to bring a Cretan princess to Athens after Athens had just been at war with Crete. Regardless of the reason, Ariadne woke up alone on the beach, watching the ship disappear over the horizon. She had given him the thread. He left her behind. Dionysus found her there, heartbroken and abandoned, and made her his wife. He made her immortal, set her bridal crown in the heavens as the constellation Corona Borealis, and loved her for eternity. Ariadne's ending, at least, was better than what Theseus gave her. But Theseus was about to pay for his mistake in a different way. Theseus had forgotten his father's request. He had promised to change the sails from black to white if he survived, so Aegeus would know from a distance that his son was alive. But in the chaos of escaping Crete, fighting the Minotaur, dealing with Ariadne, and sailing home, Theseus never changed the sails. The ship approached Athens flying black. King Aegeus was watching from a cliff overlooking the sea, waiting for his son's return. He saw the black sails from a distance and understood what he thought they meant. Theseus was dead. The grief was immediate and absolute. He threw himself from the cliff into the sea. The body of water where he died is still called the Aegean Sea. Theseus arrived home victorious to find his father dead by his own hand. The mistake was unforgivable. He had killed the Minotaur, freed Athens from the tribute, and brought the other tributes home alive. But he had also caused his father's death through pure carelessness. He became king of Athens under a shadow. This is the moment that defines Theseus' story more than the Minotaur ever did. You can do the impossible. Kill the monster, navigate the maze, and still destroy what matters most through a single stupid mistake you could have avoided. Theseus carries this for the rest of his life. The black sails are his real opponent. He beat the monster and lost to himself. As king, Theseus unified the scattered villages of Attica into a single city-state with Athens as its center. He established democratic reforms, created the Panathenaic Games, and positioned Athens as a major power in Greece. Ancient Athenians credited him with founding the political structure that would eventually become their democracy. Whether this is historically accurate is debatable, but the myth served its purpose. Theseus was Athens personified. He also had many other adventures. He joined the Argonauts. He fought the Amazons and married their queen Hippolyta. He participated in the Chaldean boar hunt. He descended into the underworld with his friend Pirithous to try to kidnap Persephone, which went very badly and resulted in both of them being trapped there until Heracles eventually freed Theseus. But Theseus' later life was marked by a series of increasingly poor decisions. He abandoned Ariadne. He forgot the sails. He kidnapped Helen of Sparta when she was a child, which causes significant political problems. He tried to steal Persephone from Hades. In his old age, he was exiled from Athens in a political coup and died alone on the island of Skyros, either murdered or from an accidental fall. The hero who saved Athens died forgotten by it. The arc of Theseus' life teaches something uncomfortable. Heroism and competence in one area do not transfer to wisdom in others. The man who navigated the labyrinth made catastrophic mistakes in nearly every personal relationship he had. The man who killed the Minotaur died in exile. Success and failure are not opposites. They're two parts of the same story. The thread Ariadne gave Theseus became one of the most enduring symbols in Western thought. An Ariadne's thread is any tool or method that helps you navigate a complex problem by maintaining a connection to where you started. In philosophy, it represents logical reasoning through a difficult argument. In psychology, it represents the thread of memory connecting past to present. The labyrinth itself became a metaphor for any situation where the challenge is not defeating the enemy, but finding your way back out after. The monster is secondary. The maze is the real test. You can win the fight and still die lost in the corridors. The thread is the difference between victory and pointless death. What makes the myth effective is how simple the solution is. Ariadne's thread is not magic. It's not divine intervention. It's just a ball of string and the idea to tie one end to the door and unspool it as you walk. Anyone could have thought of it. The genius is not in the complexity of the solution, but in recognizing what problem actually needs to be solved. The Minotaur is a distraction. The labyrinth is the point. Modern retellings of Theseus often sanitize the character, making him a straightforward hero who kills the monster and lives happily ever after. The Greek version is considerably more honest. Theseus is brave, clever, and capable, and also reckless, thoughtless, and ultimately tragic. He saves Athens and destroys his father. He defeats the Minotaur and abandons the woman who made it possible. Both things are true. Later philosophical thought used Theseus to explore identity and continuity. The ship of Theseus paradox asks, if you replace every plank of Theseus's ship over time, is it still the same ship? And if you build a second ship from the original planks, which one is the real ship of Theseus? The Greeks were already asking these questions in the context of Theseus, because his story is about continuity and change, triumph and failure existing simultaneously. The story of Theseus and the Minotaur teaches us that the most dangerous part of any challenge is not the obvious threat, but the problem of getting out after. You can succeed at the hard thing and still fail at the simple thing you forgot to do on the way back. The black sails are a reminder that carelessness kills as effectively as monsters do. It also teaches us that no one succeeds alone. Theseus does not defeat the Minotaur through his own strength or cleverness. He succeeds because Ariadne gives him the thread and Daedalus gives her the knowledge. The hero who takes credit for everything is the hero who forgets the people who made it possible. Theseus literally forgot Ariadne on an island. That's not a metaphor. That's what he did. And finally, the myth teaches us that founding a city and ruling it well are different skills. Theseus was excellent at the dramatic heroic moment. Kill the monster, save the tributes, unify Attica. He was terrible at the long-term work of relationships, promises, and not making catastrophic mistakes through inattention. The qualities that make someone good in a crisis do not automatically make them good in peacetime. The labyrinth remains one of the most powerful symbols in mythology because it represents a specific kind of problem, one where the challenge is not strength or courage, but the ability to maintain your orientation in a deliberately disorienting space. You cannot fight your way out. You cannot force your way through. You need a method, a system, a thread. That is what Ariadne gave Theseus. It is also what he failed to give her in return. The story of Theseus and the Minotaur is about solving the right problem. The Minotaur is the distraction. The labyrinth is the test. The thread is the answer. And the black sails are the proof that you can do everything right in the maze and still fail at the simple thing you forgot about. Theseus killed the monster, saved Athens, and became its greatest king. He also destroyed his father, abandoned the woman who saved his life, and died in exile. Both versions of the story are true. That is what makes him interesting. That is what makes him human. This video was created by combining human research and scriptwriting with an AI-assisted visual production, bringing these ancient stories to life for modern audiences. For more Greek mythology, related books, and the AI tools we use to make this content, check the links in the description below.